everyone, welcome to another scrapbook layout and thank you for joining me again today. So I mentioned in the last video that I did that I had two kits, or one kit from Scrapbook Generation, but where it was one of the ones where you could choose to do two separate layouts, and I liked both of them. So this is the second layout I'm going to do, and I'm only doing it this way. I didn't order anything extra to do it. This was just, I had already ordered from that kit, so I figured I would go ahead and do that second layout since I really liked it just as much as I liked the other one. Here's where I'm checking to make sure. I mentioned also that cutting my 1/4 inch strips with this cutter sometimes makes them a little crooked, but when I did them this time, I went just a little bit slower and I just took a little bit more time and attention with cutting them, and they turned out better. So if you have this cutter and you cut 1/4 inch strips, and if you've noticed at all, maybe it's just me, I'm sure that the cutter is just fine, but if you just go a little slower, then they turn out okay, and just make sure to really hold the paper down. So I'm cutting the 4x4 cards. There is a couple 4x4 cards on this layout, and I didn't like, I don't know if there was one or two that I didn't like that they had chosen, so I'm just picking out the ones that I wanted to use instead. And I apologize if you can hear the garbage truck going by in the background. I also started to think maybe possibly I could use different pattern papers, not necessarily just the ones they used, since I had the entire collection, but I ended up going ahead and using what they did, and I'm glad I did. I like it better that way. There is some papers in this collection that honestly I could have lived without. I think, okay, so if you look on the screen, that white one with the red roses, I think the other side is something that I can use. But that white one with the roses just doesn't really go with much at all in this collection. First of all the colors in this collection are very kind of muted and cream. And so then here you have this bright white with these deep red roses. It just kind of didn't look to me like it would go, but like I said, I could probably use the other side. So I believe all these strips are cut to 8 inches tall, and now I'm going to go ahead and glue them down, and I'm going to work from one side to the other. I am going to mess up, which I will show you here in a little while, but I just turned my paper, and since I have the first one lined up, I'm just going to line up all these other ones after that and have them all fit in. And I just took my Scrappy Tape for gluing the little 1/4 inch tape pieces down, or not tape pieces, these 1/4 inch stripe pieces down. That Scrappy Tape can really help because the ATG is just a little bit too big. So a lot of times I would just fill in this whole area with adhesive, but I wasn't really sure what I wanted to go where, and I wanted to go a little slower and make sure I got them lined up. So I'm just adding adhesive to each little piece. And this is the area where I think I changed a couple of these 4x4 cards. One reason that I changed them wasn't necessarily that I didn't like the ones that they chose, but the layout that I did last time with this collection was the same photos, and although they might not go right next to each other in the book, I don't know how they'll go. I haven't dealt with that yet. I didn't want them to I didn't want it to be like the exact same stuff, if that makes any sense. So even though they'll be separate pages, I still just didn't want it to be the exact same items. So I hope that makes a lot of sense. And then another thing I also did, when I go to put my pictures down on this hand side, you will see I end up using a 4x4 instead of a 4x6. They had a vertical 4x6, and I only had horizontal photos for this. What I think might have happened was that I was supposed to, or I had planned to use these photos with the other sketch and the other photos with this sketch, but since I had already done the other sketch, it was too late and I didn't really want to worry about it. So I just cut it to 4x4 and made it work for me. And then again, I'm just doing this side, and I'm just kind of working from the middle in to the outside, and this is the layout. Again, I'm really going to go very minimal with the clusters, and here's where I missed this part. So they did have this strip kind of here It was supposed to go down before all the other stuff, but I thought, you know, I am not going to even attempt to pull all that other stuff up. It just would have been chaos. So the very background paper is just like a light brown. I don't want to really call it a craft because when you see it in person, it's kind of more, I mean, I guess you could call it craft light brown. I don't know. I don't know those technical terms for each one, but I just pulled a couple of those from my stash, so that's where those came from, and it's tended to work out, seemed to work out pretty perfectly. Now this photo is going to overlap both pages here, and you can see I trimmed off this very tiny piece, and I probably should have thought about this a little bit more. It does stick down and it does just fine. I didn't want to not put it on the left hand side and have that photo just look like it was chopped off, so I took some wet glue, and it's got this very pointy end, so I'm just kind of holding it down and really trying to get it to glue. Luckily that Lawn Fawn glue holds pretty well, so I think it'll stay, and I think it worked. So now it looks like the whole photo is there. Again, since I had this paper again, because I had purchased the collection separately, I had another one of these hearts, which they call for fussy cutting out this heart. I think in their layout they also fussy cut out a bunch of flowers and other items. However, since I had the collection, I'm just going to pull out the ephemera pieces. And again, here's another time when you can see my layout is rather to the left. I looked up in the camera and realized it, so luckily I got it moved over for you guys, but I will pay attention to that. So I'm not going to fussy cut any of the flowers and things like that. I figure I can use the papers for other things, and I will just use the ephemera pieces. So you're going to see me go through here and cut out some of those ephemera pieces. Oh, there was a word phrase I think maybe here that I'm cutting out that I want to use. This was probably also part of the way they had their sketch. So I'm just adding a couple little banner edges to the end of this, and I'm going to add a little bit of ink, even though it is a darker paper. Sometimes you can see the whiteness or from the inside of the paper, so I still ink my dark papers. And then I'm going to use some foam tape to pop this up with some foam tape. And you can see so far that the clusters are, my thinking is there's enough on that grateful, thankful, blessed with those flowers. I didn't want to add more to that because then it would be too much. They did have this heart in this area, and I liked that heart idea. I wanted a couple more things around it. And then on the very left-hand side, I thought perhaps I would put something there. So I think they might have also had something on the very left-hand side, so I might be taking from them on that one. But I knew I wanted a little bit something more, so what I decided to do was add a little cluster area to the other side of those photos in the middle, so where you can see that yellow flower now. So I'm also doing my trick here where I take my flowers. If it's a huge flower piece like this, I like to sometimes take the edges, and I've mentioned this in videos lots of times, but I like to take the edges of flowers, especially leaves, and put foam tape under the edges of the leaves, and then glue, or like the end of a leaf, and glue one end flat and one end with foam tape, and it just really kind of gives a little bit of movement to the page. And so I did that with both of these. Was it this layout and the other layout? Maybe it's this one here, I'm not sure. A little bit of foam tape. Yeah, it was this one here. I glued the middle yellow part of that flower down flat, but underneath the leaves, and I don't think I put foam tape all around it. I think I just mostly under one or two of those leaves. I glued it flat, and that way it had some dimension. And same thing I think with this third flower cluster that I just glued down as well. I think that I don't do much else to this layout. I pulled out my wood veneer hearts instead of using enamel dots or something. I was thinking about my gems, or I was thinking about enamel dots, but then I also know that I really want to try to get some of these wood veneers used up, and I've mentioned that plenty of times as well, but seems like I'm not using them up quite as much as I want to be, so I'm slowly trying to remember to use them is more the thing. Definitely when it comes to choosing something, I love my enamel dots, so I usually go straight towards my enamel dots, which I should use those up, but I'm just trying to change it up a little bit. And since I also knew that other layout was going to be near this layout in that book, in the 2017 album, then I thought even having wood veneer would be a little bit different than the gems that I used on the other layout. So another thing that would make this page stand out differently than that layout. So I hope you guys like this layout. I really like this sketch. I think this is definitely one I will use again, and I hope you guys had a good time watching. Thank you so much for watching, and I will talk to you guys later. Bye!